I'm back already with another wrap up. It feels like I just filmed my June wrap up and now it's July. Hey everyone, my name is Allie and welcome back to my channel, and today, as I just said, I'm going to be doing my July wrap up and my August TBR. So last month I didn't do a TBR and it kind of ended up a little messy this month. I did really well. I actually read quite a lot of books, but I never really knew what to read next, which was like my big issue. So I figured I would go back to doing TBRs because even though I don't always stick to them, they at least like give me a guide to kind of like where I want to go this month rather than just being like, who knows? So might as well just start off this wrap up because I have quite a few books to get through. So the first one I read, I'm not going to talk about too much because I did already make a video about it and I will link it either up here somewhere or down below somewhere. And that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. And I'm kind of meh about it. Like, there are things that I liked, things that I didn't like, but if you want to know more about my feelings, I have a video and you can go watch it because I talk about so much stuff in that video. Once I finished that, I was really burnt out on physical books. Like, that book damaged me. Like, I don't know why, but it just like, after reading that book, I didn't want to read anything else physical. It was just like, please do not put a physical book in front of my face, please. So with that being said, I decided to listen to a lot of audiobooks, which I mean, I love audiobooks, but I listened to a lot of them, and it was just like basically the majority of things that I read this month were audiobooks. So I kind of got into an adult audiobook kick, and the first book that I read was The Vacationers by Emma Straub, and I gave that a 3 out of 5 stars. And that one was pretty meh to me as well. I did enjoy it and I liked reading it because it was a good audiobook, but it just wasn't that great. Like, I felt like the storylines were kind of interesting and the characters were well fleshed out and interesting, but it just didn't really like hit the mark for me for some reason. Like, I enjoyed the story, but like looking back on it, I don't really remember a lot of things that happened in the book, which is a huge issue for me because even though like I do tend to forget a few things after I read a book, it's never to like, oh, I forgot like everything. Like, I don't even remember anyone's name. I don't remember like certain things that happened, which is kind of an issue. I don't remember certain plot points, which is an issue. So a 3 out of 5 stars seemed kind of right for me. I think it's a good book. It's really hard for me to rate adult books and like explain what I feel about them because I don't read a lot of adult books. So I don't really have a sort of barometer like I do with YA, where I have like, oh, my favorite YA books and my least favorite YA books, and I can kind of, you know, gauge where my enjoyment of a book was if it's in YA. But if it's outside of YA, I have such a difficult time rating and talking about the book. So I have a lot of feelings that I don't really know how to convey very well. The next audiobook I read was The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho? I really don't know how to say his name and I'm so sorry for butchering it, but this is a pretty popular book and it was super short, so I'm like, ooh, I'll listen to the audiobook because it's like a 4-hour long audiobook. It took me maybe 2 hours to read and it was really good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I love sort of the allegory of chasing your dreams and, you know, kind of knowing where you want your life to go. And a lot of it was about, you know, achieving your goals and realizing your dreams, which is like a really good message to send. And I felt like this was a book that literally anyone of any age could read. It's not really explicit at all, and there's no real like hardcore adult themes. It's pretty standard throughout, but it's definitely not like a generic story. I found it to be really interesting, and I loved kind of getting to see these lessons being told through a fictional story rather than like a self-help book, because basically the plot of this story could have just been told through a self-help book. It could have totally been nonfiction and it would have been fine. But I really liked learning all these like life lessons sort of things through a fictional tale. So I guess it's kind of like a fable in that way. And I love stories like that. So it just really resonated with me. And it was a really good audiobook, so if you're on the lookout for a really short audiobook, I totally recommend The Alchemist. The next audiobook I read was Sons and Daughters of Ease and Plenty by Ramona Acebel, and I rated that a 3 out of 5 stars as well. It was kind of like the same thing as The Vacationers, where it was pretty meh. There were things I liked, things I didn't like. I felt like the storyline was really interesting, but the characters were kind of generic. I didn't really resonate with any of the characters. And the timeline was really, really messy. It kept, you know, jumping through different timelines, which I guess would have been a lot clearer if I had read the book physically, but it was an audiobook, so I kind of lost a little bit of that like sense of, okay, here is where I am, here's where the story is. And, you know, with the audiobook, it just kind of got a little muddled. But I did really enjoy the audiobook. Like, all of these audiobooks were so good. Like, a 5 out of 5 audiobook. But the story was just kind of like, there were things I liked, things I didn't like, and it was just like very meh. I can't really explain what the book is about. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that one Blake Lively movie. I'll put it up on the screen here. I can't remember what it's called, but it reminded me of that. And it was just like a lot of, and not really in the time travel aspect, but in the aspect of like jumping between time periods. And, you know, it was okay. I'm not really a huge adult fiction fan, so I'm not really the booktuber to go to if you're looking for adult fiction recs, but I mean, I really want to step out of my comfort zone, and I felt like the month of July was like the perfect time to do it. And I have Hoopla, so I find a lot of my audiobooks on there, and it has such a good selection for my library, and it just seemed like, you know, a good time to step out of the old comfort zone. The next book I read was definitely one of my favorites of the month, and that was Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. And oh my gosh, I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it so much. Basically, this is about a girl, and she is super obsessed with this podcast. And one day she's helping a friend who's drunk get home, and he admits to her that he's the voice of the podcast. And things just go from there, and the story is so beautiful. The characters are amazing, and the writing is so good. And like, my favorite thing about this book is that the chapters are super short, so it's such a fast read. It's like, really, it's a thick girl, but the chapters are so short, so it just feels like you're like breezing through it, which is like my favorite kind of book. Even though I do sometimes like a long chapter, I really enjoy those really short ones. And these are like 2 pages long, 3 pages long, 1 page long, 4 pages long, 2 pages, you know, it's like nothing above like maybe 5 pages. It's like such a quick book, and I loved it so much. Like, I want to reread it so bad, but I'm like keeping myself away from it because I'm like, I gotta give myself some room to breathe. Maybe in a few months I can reread it. Maybe like around December or January I can reread it. But for now, I kind of have to give it a breather, give it some space. But it's such a glorious and beautiful book. I love it so much. Please read it. Please read it. This is definitely a new all-time favorite read. The next book was actually an audiobook as well, but this was a YA audiobook, and it was The Statistical Probability of Love at First Sight by Jennifer E. Smith. And I gave this a 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. 5 out of 5. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know where that accent came from, why I did that. And I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. And actually, I read this book about 5 years ago, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And I guess I was a little more critical back then, but this time around, reading it and getting to listen to the audiobook, which is super short, I think it's like 6 hours long, maybe a little bit longer than that. And I think I read it in maybe 3 or 4 hours. It was just so beautiful. It made me cry. It's definitely a super short book, and it's definitely like insta love, but it's done so beautifully, and they really do connect so well, and I really do believe in the relationship. And I just think that Jennifer E. Smith did such an amazing job writing this story. I love her writing. I love her characterization. I love her plot, because it just, even though it's a short book and even though it's a romance, it just feels so well, like the beats are all there, and it just feels like a really well plotted out book. And I loved it. It was so beautiful. Basically, it's these 2 characters, and they meet in an airport, and the main girl misses her flight, and the love interest is kind of like mysterious and a little broody, but he's like adorable and soft, and I love him, and they're just so cute together, and I totally believe it, and I cried so much at the end. So I mean, if you're looking for a really cute, really short romance YA book. Even though it's insta love, I promise it's so good. And the very last book that I read was actually a poetry collection by one of my friends, and it's called Star-Crossed Lovers Are Not Meant for Each Other by Michaela Debonis. And this is an ARC that I received from the author. She was very kind enough to ask me if I wanted to review her poetry collection before it came out. And I absolutely loved it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. And like with all of Michaela's poetry collections, I found this one to be really well done. And I always feel like she has a super clear beginning, middle, and end to her collections. And there's always just like a very strong focus. I feel like with other poetry collections I've read, they're a little all over the place, which I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for her, I really love the fact that she really focuses in on like one subject and really goes for it. And I didn't feel like there was too much repetition. There was just enough to make it seem cohesive, but not too much to make it sound like, oh, these are just the same poems over and over again. And I really, really loved it. I felt like the pacing was so good. The length was really good. There were just a few things that I would have like tweaked a little bit. Some poems I would have maybe moved around to seem a little bit more like, okay, there's not like, you know, these little chunks of different things. But for the most part, I really, really loved it, and I definitely recommend checking it out when it comes out. And I'll leave like all the information right here. I always find it a little hard to review poetry collections because I'm not like a huge poetry person, I guess. Like, I write poetry sometimes and I like to read poetry sometimes, but I'm not like the best at being super critical with poetry collections. I know what I like, and if it's something that I enjoy, then I enjoy it, and if it's something I don't enjoy, then I don't enjoy it. There's not too much like complicated ideas up in my head with poetry collections. Okay, so those are all the books that I read in July, and now on to my August TBR. So I have a couple ARCs, a couple new releases, a couple of like slightly older releases, not really old, but from earlier on this year, so I guess kind of new releases. And the book that I'm currently reading right now, I'm actually almost done with it. I think I have a little less than 200 pages left, and that's Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. I've been reading this for a little while. I know it's, you know, it's been a journey with this book. Basically, I just haven't had a lot of time to read lately, and I'm hoping that in August I can fix that. And I really want to finish this book super soon, maybe even tonight, maybe tomorrow at the latest. But I'm really, really enjoying this book. So far, it's definitely like a 4 out of 5 stars for me. It really depends on how the ending goes, and it could either push it to a 5 out of 5 or it could stay at a 4 out of 5. So it's really up in the air right now, but I'm feeling pretty good about a 4 out of 5 star rating. The next book is August's book of the month, or at least one of the picks from the book of the month, and the one I chose was Hello Girls by Brittany Cavallaro and Emily Henry. And this has been one of my like biggest and most anticipated reads of this year. I love Brittany Cavallaro. She is literally my icon, my idol. I met her earlier this year and she is so amazing. Like literally, she is just an angel. And I'm just so excited to get to read something new from her, especially after having finished the Charlotte Holmes series. And I'm just so excited. It's a very short book. It's much shorter than I expected it to be, but it's also, like I said, a book of the month book. So it's just, I love it. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I really don't know too much about what this is about, but I want to go into it a little blind. So I'm just really excited. Is that cool? That's really cool. The next book is an ARC of a book that actually is already out right now, I'm pretty sure, right? And that's The Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson, and I'm just so excited to finally get to read this book. I have been like putting this off all last month and waiting until August to read it. I don't really know why. It just seemed like an August kind of book, and I'm just so excited. I'm so ready for this. I read an Enchantment of Ravens, I think last year, right? I don't know, but I read Enchantment of Ravens. I loved it, and so I'm super excited to get to this one. I've heard so many good things about it. I love a good fantasy, and I'm pretty sure this has to do with like libraries and books that have like minds of their own, so I'm really, really excited about this book. The next two are ARCs that are set to come out in 2020, so they're definitely a long ways away, but I'm just too excited about them not to add them into my TBR this month. I might not get to both of them, them, but I'm definitely getting to one of them. The first arc is The Map from Here to There by Emery Lord, and I've never actually read an Emery Lord book, but I'm really excited about this one. It has such a cute little cover. I love the back. It's just so cute. I'm really loving all of these illustrated covers. I think they're so gorgeous. Like, this is just like such an aesthetic, such a mood, and I'm really excited about it. I'm pretty sure it's kind of a road trippy book, which I love road trip books, and I'm just really excited about it. And I don't want to know too much about these books. I love going into books not knowing like the entire summary or exactly what it's about. I just need to know like if it's gonna be like a mood. The next book is like my most anticipated book of next year. It is just, oh, I'm so excited. And it is A Heart So Fierce and Broken by Bridget Kammerer. I screamed when I opened this package. I was like not expecting it. Like, I should have been expecting it because they did ask me if I wanted it, and I was like, yes, of course. And then I forgot that I was getting it. I don't know how I forget that. I don't know how that's something that someone forgets, but I forgot that I was getting this arc. So, I mean, I'm just so excited about it. This is the sequel to A Curse So Dark and Lonely. And A Heart So Fierce and Broken is literally going to destroy my actual heart. So I'm just really excited about it. I love Bridget Kammerer's writing. I love her way of writing fantasy. It's so fresh, it's so new, and she is such a queen. So I'm really, really excited to get back into this world and this series, and I'm so ready to see my babies again. I love them so much. The next book in my TBR is another one that I am just so excited about because it's a retelling of one of my favorite fairy tales of all time. And that is Stain by A.G. Howard. I don't know why I forgot her name, but A.G. Howard, and this is a retelling of Princess and the Pea. And Princess and the Pea is one of my favorite fairy tales because that's me. And I don't know, I just love this fairy tale, and I think I'm really gonna enjoy this book. I was like trying to think of like kind of a not really a trashy fantasy, because I don't want to like call this trash because I haven't read it yet, but something that was kind of more of like a stereotypical fantasy, something a bit more classic. And I wanted something that I knew was going to have like either a masquerade scene or a ball scene, and I'm pretty sure this might have either one. Probably a ball scene, at least. Maybe a masquerade, who knows. But I really wanted that kind of like aesthetic in my fantasy, so I'm like, I have Stain, might as well read it. It's also the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, which I didn't realize, but look at how beautiful this cover is. Like, even if the book sucks, at least the cover's gorgeous. Like, it's so cute. Alright, so that was my July wrap-up and my August TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know that like my descriptions of the books weren't like the best this month, but I mean, this month has just been like so much stuff going on in my brain, and reading has not been a huge priority for me this month. So I'm hoping this month, I keep saying this month like it's still July. It wasn't a big priority in July, but I'm hoping to make it a priority in August. So watch out for that. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Goodreads, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!